Hey everyone, welcome back to the Living in Maryland channel. So today we're talking about the things that I wish I knew before buying a home here in the state of Maryland. So for me, I came from Southern California just about 8 years ago. So there was a lot that was different in regards to climate, types of homes and things of that nature. So I'm definitely gonna share some of my experiences with you, experiences from clients of mine over the years, and hopefully that'll help you out with your move here to the state of Maryland. And let's get started right now. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we talk about all things living here in the great state of Maryland. So if that's the kind of information you're looking for, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be made aware of the new videos that we do each and every week here on the channel. And if you are thinking about moving here to the state of Maryland, if you're considering whether purchasing a home is the right decision for you and your family, we absolutely love helping out, answering any questions that you may have. However you feel comfortable reaching out, whether that's by phone, text, or email, days, nights, and weekends, we've got your back when moving here to the great state of Maryland. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about here is state income tax. Now, for me, coming from California, this wasn't a huge shocker. I can't even remember kind of the brackets and how it was set up in California anymore because it's been so many years, but I know it was a lot. But I know a lot of you are coming from areas maybe maybe you haven't paid as much state income tax, maybe you've paid none. So this is something you definitely want to be prepared for. So in Maryland, I'm going to just kind of give you a quick breakdown of how that works. You're going to pay a state income tax directly to the state. And then on top of that, you're gonna pay a local income tax based on the county that you live in. Now, both are paid through the state, so it gets you may not even realize you're paying a local county income tax, but it's definitely there, and it depends on the county that you live in, not the county or area that you work in. So this is something just to kind of keep in mind. And most people, based on your income, but most people are gonna end up paying a little over 8%. So it definitely adds up, especially as your income grows. You're gonna be writing a nice size check to the state of Maryland. So not something that's ever fun, but something that you wanna be prepared for. Now, when it comes to state income tax, anything over $3,000 a year as far as earned income is gonna be 4.75%. Now, once you exceed over $100,000 a year, that's gonna jump to 5%. And then anything over $250,000 of income in a year is going to jump to 5.75%. Now, when it comes to the county local income tax, that is going to be, again, based on the county that you live in, and it's going to range from 2.8 to 3.2% based on that county. Now, I can tell you that most counties within central Maryland, so that includes Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Montgomery County, Howard County, they're all at the very top, 3.2%. And you're gonna add that to whatever you're paying based on your income to the state. As I mentioned, most people are probably gonna be in that 8 to 8.5 range when it's all said and done based on where your income is. I will say Anne Arundel County is gonna be the lowest in the central Maryland region at 2.8%. So if you are kind of on the fence of where you want to live, if you're open to areas in Anne Arundel County, say versus Howard County or PG County or Montgomery County, maybe that's something that's a little bit of a benefit to Anne Arundel. So something to keep in mind, not a huge difference, but it is going to be the least as far as local county income tax based on other surrounding counties. Next, I want to talk about front foot fees and deferred water charges. So this is something that definitely would have been helpful to know because, to be honest, a lot of times this doesn't come up until you've already looked at a home, until you've kind of ran numbers, and then a lot of times it's buried in the seller disclosures, and then it's like, oh wait, there's another fee of $800 a year. So this is something, being in real estate now, I know to look for it, but if you are kind of just a typical buyer out there, this is something you want to be prepared for. And kind of what to look out for in regards to that, like where you are most likely to see it, is in homes and communities that have been built early 1990s or after, especially in the 2000s and after. It's even going to be more common to see this. So, and this is going to range from $300 a year to $1,000 a year, depending on the community, depending on the location, and other factors. Now, basically what this is in newer communities, when the developers and the builders are going in there and building these communities, they are putting all the expenses of the sidewalks, the water, lines, the sewer lines and all that stuff. They're fronting that expense, and it's basically put onto a 30-year bond that the future homeowners pay over 30 years. So if the home was built in 2000, that's going to drop off at 2030 almost all the time. That's a very common time frame that we see. It could be a little longer, it could be a little shorter, but that's kind of more times than not, that's where it ends up. Now, an important thing to know about this is it carries with the property. So this is something that, if you own a home with it and you go to sell that home, we're going to disclose it, and then it's going to pass on to that next buyer, and they're going to take that over. Now, a couple years ago, Maryland cracked down on this. It was not getting disclosed properly, and they cracked down on sellers, and they said, look, if you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, if you do not disclose this to your prospective buyer, then you are going to be responsible to pay that in full, even though you don't own the home anymore. So this is something that's very, very important, and that sellers hopefully are being told and coached to make sure like we get this right. We got to make sure we disclose it. Hopefully, in a perfect world, provide the previous year's or the current year's invoice to show that buyer. So this is something to definitely be aware of. Again, ask about that if you're working with somebody or if you're looking at homes in certain communities and they're built 1990s and after. Just ask, hey, is there a front foot fee? Is there a deferred water and sewer charge or something? Those are the common terms. And the reason you want to ask about this as early as possible is because more times than not, when it goes missed up front, it'll pop up once you're already under contract. And then you've got to, sign a couple documents acknowledging it and all this stuff. So, and who wants surprises as far as additional expenses once you're already under contract on a home? So finding out about this as early as possible is definitely something that is helpful. All right, next is going to be just being aware in general of the type of heating and cooling that the home may have. So as I had mentioned, I moved here from Southern California, so we just had standard AC, forced air and stuff out there. So coming here, when we bought our first home, we bought our home basically like 4 or 5 months after moving here. So I didn't even realize that the home that we bought until we got to the home inspection, so we were already under contract, that it had boiler hot water heat. I mean, I knew that it had baseboards, but I didn't really put together what that meant, and I was still kind of figuring things out here in Maryland. So this was 7.5 ish years ago or something like that. And then also we were doing the home inspection, and we were like, how does the water get heated? We can't find a water heater. Is it up in the attic? No, it's like nowhere to be found. And our hot water was basically tied in through the boiler as well. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something you want to be aware of. So when you see baseboards here in the state of Maryland, if you're seeing them in any kind of homes, more than likely it's going to be homes that are built in the late 60s and earlier. That's something you just want to maybe to trigger a few more questions. So it's very rare to see electric baseboards here in Maryland. So more than likely it's going to be hot water baseboards tied to a boiler. Boilers are basically fed through oil. So this is something you just want to know about, especially with the cost of oil on the rise and already pretty expensive. This is going to be a more costly way to heat your home, and it's something you just want to have awareness of up front. So for me, we always filled it just in full as it came, right? So it's typical to see 250 gallon tanks. You sign up with a company and they come up and they can either fill you basically like based on your needs. They kind of calculate how often you need to be filled, and you just sign up for that. But for us, I would monitor it, and I would be like, all right, we're at a quarter tank, let's get this thing filled. And I would also try to time it with fuel prices too, which is, for me, that was just a little bit of fun trying to kind of time it out. But sometimes that's not what everyone wants to do. So looking into that, because it is a little more expensive, and basically it heats that water and then it creates like a radiant type heat through those baseboards. So it's a very effective way to heat a home. It's not as dry as some of the other forced heat, but it's something you want to be prepared for, mainly because of that cost factor. So definitely something to look into. All right, and next is going to be having some awareness of heat pumps. So heat pumps is the type of heat here. It's a type of forced air heat that we have that's pretty common here in Maryland, especially if the home does not have access to natural gas, propane, or anything like that. It's almost certainly going to be a heat pump. So from the HVAC guys that I talk to here in Maryland, I've just heard pretty common across the board that they're just not super great for Maryland, because although a lot of years we have pretty mild winters, there's some years that we get, pretty, strong winters here where it gets pretty cold. And as it gets below 32, these heat pumps struggle with efficiency. So it's something you want to be aware of. Now, I'm not an HVAC guy, so I don't want to speak on some of this stuff, but pretty much why that is because it's all electric. It doesn't heat as hot as, say, an oil or a gas or something like that. So with your heat pumps, it might come out, your air at the vents might be coming out at about, high 80s to low 90s, whereas with a fossil fuel, it's coming out warmer. It may not have to run as long. So those are things to kind of look into. If it's all electric, you're going to be working with a heat pump. It can be drier, depending on who you talk to. If, I've talked to several people where it's like, definitely noticeable. So something you just want to, kind of be aware of and see if that's something that'll be a good fit. Now, we made a move a few months ago, and this is something that cost me a lot of money, but something was a good learning experience as well. And I knew this. So with a heat pump, they don't last as long. So their shelf life comes down to about 12 to 13 years, according to the manufacturer, because that outdoor condenser is running all year long, right? So versus just your standard furnace, those usually can go 25 years. But these heat pumps have shorter, lifespan. So that's something you want to be prepared for as well. So when we moved into this new home, it's got a heat pump. And it was crazy with the move. So, 2 weeks in, things finally start to settle down a little bit. And I'm like, all right, let's check what our expected, projected bill is with BG&E, our utility company, $800. And I was like, okay, something's wrong here. So started making some phone calls, started paying a little more attention. The outdoor condenser was not running, and it was basically running on what's called auxiliary or emergency heat, which is just uses far more electricity than when that condenser is running. And again, that's going to run year round. So you want to pay attention to that condenser and make sure it's running, or else your bill is going to be jacked way up. So anyways, that ended up coming way down once that got corrected, but definitely something you want to pay attention to, because it can get pricey if you are not, if you're running that auxiliary heat. It's just pure electric, and it gets very, very costly. So definitely something to keep in mind with heat pumps here in Maryland. When it gets cold, definitely not as, less efficient, a little less effective, but something that's definitely present here in Maryland. And last but not least is Maryland having basements. So this is something that I love because it's additional living space. It's space for, the utility stuff to go. So this is where you're going to see all your hot water heaters, HVAC, your furnaces, and all that kind of stuff. So it gets it, out away from that main living space upstairs, and gets it down here, in addition to having, like I said, that additional living space. But I will tell you, I've heard this from a lot of people here in Maryland, that there's two kinds of basements, one that have flooded and ones that will flood. So that's something to be prepared for. I personally have not experienced that yet, but I've only been here 8 years, so we'll see if that holds true for me. But a couple things that I wanted to let people know about. So how can you prevent that? When I'm talking to inspectors a lot about this kind of stuff, most of them are going to point to grading being extremely, extremely important. One of the most important things. So you want to make sure you've got gutter extensions on all your downspouts. I can't believe how many homes that I go to where those gutters are dropping right at the foundation. So in heavy rains, that water's just dropping right there at the house. So that's something that's a no-no. So you want to make sure that you get those extensions on, get it away from the house. Make sure there's no sloping grade towards the foundation. So these are just a couple things that's going to be extremely, extremely helpful to kind of avoid that. And maybe it's unavoidable at a certain point, but there's definitely things that you can do to make sure that you do your best to avoid that. So, but basements are extremely common here in Maryland. So on single family detached homes, I mean, probably 90 to 95% of homes have basements. So it's something that you're going to see kind of across the board here in Central Maryland. As you get to the Eastern Shore, I don't think that's, as common, but I'm imagining most of you are coming here working in the DC, Baltimore area, and you're going to be kind of in Baltimore County, Howard County, Anne Arundel, Montgomery County, Prince George's County. You're gonna see them all across the board in that region. So something to be prepared for, something that's really fun because you've got those man caves, you've got that space to, to hang out away from just your main level of living. So definitely something that's cool about homes here in Maryland. All right, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Hope you learned something new. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out or comment below, and we'll see you at the next video.